Welcome to Oregon Outdoors. I'm Mark Freeman. Now, people here in the Northwest have had this fantastic, loving relationship with their whitewater rivers for decades. The raw excitement of exerting your will on nature by rowing through wild water is totally unmatched. But for the past century, there's been one whitewater craft that's made that happen for river rats all around here like me. It's the drift boat. Spawned on the Mackenzie and Rogue rivers, the drift boat is the chariot of our wild streams. Ranging from the traditional wooden models to the modern aluminum, they have shaped river running and river fishing here like nothing else. It's a living history of the Northwest, and it's told by our boats. The world of the modern drift boat began here on the Mackenzie River east of Eugene a century ago. Now, rivers like the Mackenzie and the Rogue in southern Oregon started gaining notoriety as fly fishing destinations. So all these up-and-coming guides needed boats that could get them through menacing whitewater between fishing spots. So the trick is to go with the flow and avoid the rocks. That meant moving slower than the water, rowing against the current to allow maneuverability. Crazy paradigm, but it works. Now, early designs focused on the old ocean dory, but with wider sides and a bigger bow to take on the big waves. Now, most drift boats now are made from aluminum or fiberglass, but the wooden drift boat traditions remain alive in places like Jason Hayes' shop outside of Springfield. So to get your hands on a wooden boat, you don't have to parachute 100 years back in time. You just gotta come to Springfield, Oregon and hang out with this guy, Jason. It's so good to be here. I've heard so much about you making your boats. Take me to the start. I mean, you're right at the beginning of your next boat here, right?
Yeah, we've procured all the materials. We're ready to go on this. Cut just about all the parts. Last night I scarfed the plywood. I sanded it. I'm getting ready to stain it tonight, and then I'll be gluing it up. And this is a traditional Mackenzie boat right here. Douglas fir, that's where it all started.
And you love this Douglas fir because it's so malleable.
It takes form a lot nicer than some of the imports, and the impact strength of Douglas fir can't be matched.
So what are your steps?
First step is getting all the materials, knowing exactly what the customer wants, what their vision is for the boat, and we talk about that. Procure the materials, I start milling everything. As soon as these sides are completely prepped, I'm ready to start assembling this boat.
So what you'll do is you'll do the bottom first, and then you'll attach the sides.
You would think.
Okay, let me not tell you what to do, okay?
Yeah. We actually start by framing up the sides to the frames, transom, stem, and then the bottom goes on after.
Last.
Yeah, afterwards. Wow. And then making sure everything is perfectly square and symmetrical before you even put the bottom on. Because once the bottom is on, that's the shape. That's it. It's pretty much a set deal. So you don't want any twist in that boat.
So start to finish, how long does it take you?
I have built an entire boat in 2.5 weeks.
Wow. Why do you do this?
I love it. I love it. I started building boats a little over 20 years ago. I was working as a millwright at the time, and I was going to weld up my own aluminum boat and start guiding. And then I came across Greg Tapman's website, and I saw these wood boats. I'm like, gosh, that's what I belong in, as a wood boat. I started designing them after I built the first one. I think I only owned it for about 6 months. I sold it and I started building my own, coming up with my own designs and patterns and things like that. And it's just kind of grown over the last 20 years.
Let's take a look at your boat outside, because I want you to show me some of the intricacies, the old stuff that's in that boat that you don't really see in too many new boats anymore.
Sure.
So Jason, just walking up this thing, I can tell you there's a lot of history in this boat and stuff that you saw in boats 100 years ago that you don't see in now. Like, tell me about it.
Really, this boat's fairly similar to a Mackenzie River drift boat that was built back in the 1940s. It's all Douglas fir construction as far as the plywood goes. The frames and furniture are Douglas fir and Port Orford cedar. They did back starting in the 20s, 30s, and 40s because the strength, it does not rot. Those are one of the things that don't change at all in my boats.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that you can do different that are a little more on the modern side. I like the traditional lines of a Mackenzie River drift boat. So
There's all these other little pieces you can tell are a lot different from now. Like, the fly deck has that thing up top. You have that padded thing for your waist to stand up and cast flies the old traditional way. A lot of different variations now. The 3 old seats. Now there's almost always just 2. A little more comfortable.
Yeah.
Well, I see you don't have the rope seat. You went 21st century on me here. Huh?
Yeah, this is so the boat is easily taken down for stacking.
Right.
I've done a lot of guiding in the past, and when you're working with an outfitter, we're stacking boats and we're stacking them 6 high.
I don't want to talk about this anymore. I want to row this thing. Let's get this on the water.
All right, sounds good.
So that's the weight difference between a wooden boat and a standard aluminum boat the same size.
They're typically 80 to 100 pounds in difference, with the wood boat being lighter. Now when you start talking about different construction methods and materials used and things like that, it can change drastically, especially if you want to add fiberglass to a boat, a UHMW shoe on the bottom, things like that. But they're fairly comparable in weight. But they are balanced quite a bit better on the wood boats because the bottom is 300% thicker than its sides versus an aluminum boat is only about 20% thicker on the bottom than its sides. So they're balanced really, really well.
So let me ask you a legitimate question. Do you ever row metal boats anymore?
Not unless I'm with somebody in a metal boat and they want me to row.
I always say, boats in Oregon, boat built manufacturers and types of boats, it's easier to switch your religion than to change your boat.
I would agree with that.
So what's your maintenance schedule on a boat like this?
It depends on how much work I really have to do, but typically general maintenance, it takes me a couple of days to sand out the boat, a couple more days to put a couple more coats of varnish on it just to protect it, and it's ready for the next season.
And how often do you do that?
About every year to 2 years, depending on how much I've used it.
That's got to be probably the most significant difference between a historic wooden boat and an aluminum boat.
Yeah, and I think that depends on the person too. Some people go ahead and let them go a little bit, and then there's the other guys, even in the metal boat world, that they want their boat looking as pretty as possible, and next thing you know, they're spending a couple more grand on a new boat wrap.
They buy new boats every 2 or 3 years. I don't know how they do it.
Or just a vinyl boat wrap.
It's like selling your children. I mean, you only do that once, right? Well, you're rowing art, You're rowing art. And art's always got to look good.
You want to take the sticks here?
About time you asked, man.
Not very often I actually get to sit in the front of the boat.
I know. That was me for a long time. Oh yeah, this feels good. Yeah, like I mentioned to you before, some wooden boats I've been in, gonal angle has been a little bit deeper than this, and it really changes where your hands are, but really different in how you row it. I guess I've come to believe that it's not that it's wrong, it's just different. It does spin really well.
Yeah, this boat is very well balanced and handles some pretty technical water.
So how do you get that balance just right? Do you have to go in and do any counterweights of any sort, or is this just making sure you just cut it just right?
No, it's just the way that the boat design is on this particular boat. This boat's made for very technical whitewater. If you change the shape of this hull at all, or throw your weight off, say you throw a bunch of weight in the back of the boat, this boat's out of balance really fast because it's not designed for that. It's designed for all its weight to be up front and to pivot in this spot of the boat.
Well, Jason, I gotta tell you, I appreciate your God, but I'm not changing religions.
That's okay.
Toleration.
Yep,
Toleration.
we can still coexist.
I do like it though, quite a bit. So when the world moved from wooden boats to aluminum boats, it all happened right here in Medford. Isn't it beautiful? So Jim, how do you take a pile of aluminum and turn it into a whitewater boat?
$100 question. Comes in, we get it delivered. Aluminum company delivers to us. Get everything put into the rack here. It's all separated and segregated to the sizes we want.
Okay.
Then we will take it over to the cutting table and we'll cut it here, get the shape we need on the bottom and the sides as well. Then as we keep moving, you'll see these bottoms that are formed. They've been through the cutting process, been formed, and so you'll put what you call the chine,
Right.
and this has been sitting on the jig to get the configuration you want on the bottom. We weld in some supports to keep that.
This is a really critical spot in your whole thing.
Well, it's like building a house. I mean, if the foundation's out square, the house is out square. So yeah, this is the most important part. And then after we get it from here, it goes right over to here, and you can kind of get an idea of the bracing that goes in the bottom of these boats. And the sides will come together, transoms fit in, the unirail, and then from here, this is the individual that forms it will go over to a builder, which takes us right over to these two boats right here. And you'll be able to see they're almost completed. Get the side trays in, the anchor nest, lower deck, front deck, and so on and so forth.
So all the finishing work is done.
Yeah, done
You
right
have
here.
one group of guys that bend all the metal, one group of guys finish the metal.
Yep. And then once it's done here, out to the paint shop. They paint the interior because most everything on the exterior is vinyl now. And then from the paint shop to the rigging shop, and then on the trailer to Mr. Customer, and we start it all over again.
So Trigger, you've been doing this for 20 years.
Just
How do you turn this stuff into a boat?
Starts out at a lot of just flat sheets of material, a lot of manipulation of metal and cutting, sanding. This is our hulling. So we'll get the boat hauled up here and then it'll end up going outside or going right over to these guys, to the boat builders, and they'll finish it off. Takes about 2.5 days to build, start to finish.
To build one boat, 2.5 days.
Yeah, depending on, I mean, there's some other degrees of difficulty of add-ons and stuff.
So So you guys have gotten this down. You bend all the metal. You know all your specs.
Yeah.
Over time, you've developed this interesting synergy to how to put these things together.
No, we have it really dialed as far as getting everything to go together, and if there's any problems, we're able to identify exactly where something might have went south.
So this one's a little bit bigger. You know, the standard boat for years was 16 by 48 and then 16 by 54,
Yeah.
which is my boat from 1991. But now you're building all these other sizes. This is like 18-footer.
Yep, 1860. A lot of people like the extra room for clients and stuff.
Yeah.
And so they'll either get like a 1760 or an 1860, and just a lot more room to move around inside.
I know in the old days, RCC, Road Community College, had a class on how to weld for drift boats. And,
Oh, really?
And power boats. But how do you find your people like this guy that make your boats?
We train everybody in-house.
Yeah.
So we find people that were at a gas station pumping gas or doing painting, like house painting like he used to do. And I'll usually train them, or somebody else, and we'll train up with them and get them to the point to where they can weld. We'll basically turn them into welders and then fabricators.
Someday I might walk up to you and say, I used to have a TV show. I need a job welding boats.
No, I could teach almost anybody how to weld.
Yeah, I can't believe, I remember 30-some years ago sitting in your office talking about where are all these drift boats going?
Oh yeah.
Why are people still buying drift boats? Because they never break, they almost never sink, and if they do, you can pull them out.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying 30 years ago, the market's got to dry up one of these days, but you keep building and building and building these boats.
You would totally think so, and then you get people replacing boats, and it reminds me of people with cars. Once their ashtray's full, I need a new car. You know, they don't really need a new drift boat, but they want to have one. So, but yeah, but there's so many things that go into them now that have come such a long ways. I mean, I'm just looking at these two boats, for instance, the adjustable oarlock.
Yeah,
blocks.
right. That's a huge thing.
Yeah, 6 places to put your oarlock because you have your adjustable row seat.
Right.
And you can, yeah, if one guy's 6'5" rowing, the guy hops in that's 5'8", he can make it fit to his size. So it's come a long ways.
The thing is these boats just don't go apart.
No.
You know, I've had mine 31 years, and I'm going to have it another 31 years before I buy another one from you. So where are all these? It's like amazing that these things last so long, and you know, once you're in, you're part of the family.
Well, and the thing too, with all of that being said, that's what drove Willie from wood to aluminum, realizing the longevity.
Yeah.
So, yep.
So it's, in a way, the way that you're building these boats isn't necessarily good for business, but
Well,
it's still a good business.
Well, it is a good business, and it's kind of funny, 38 years I've been in this business, seen so many competitors come and go.
Yeah.
If you just want to make it on drift boats alone, it's a hard product to have much of a profit margin. So that's where the bigger boats, the power boats, come into play that we do as well. But this is a cash flow situation because you're not on the boat a long time, in and out fairly quick. So it's definitely got its pluses. And if I could only have one boat to do it all, I'd probably pick a drift boat because it's the stability.
Yeah.
8-horse motor on the back, and you can do a lot of fishing with it.
That's what I do. That's what I do. Okay, when you talk about the transformation between wooden boats and aluminum boats, there's one word you need to know, one name you need to know: Willie. Willie as in Willie Illingworth. Now he's a Rogue River fishing guide in 1971. He wanted to make a better boat than a wooden boat. He decided to make one out of aluminum, and the world has never been the same. So Jim, Willie Illingworth, father of aluminum drift boats, how did that happen?
Well, it's kind of a strange event. We first started off with wood boats, but the elements of the river, the rocks, what have you, and Mother Nature, it just, in time, they would just wear out and not be as functional as they should be.
Beat the crap out of him.
So he did, yes, exactly. So he realized aluminum was a better way to go. But he didn't have the ability to do aluminum boats himself like he did with the wood boats. So he went to Glenn Woolridge, and he wanted to be able to get the boat from Glenn, but have Glenn build it the way Willie wanted it personally. Well, Glenn told Willie to go, you got it figured out. And so Willie thought, okay, I'll go build my own boat.
Willie was this bigger than life guy. You know, everywhere I used to go, people would say, oh, you're from Medford, you know Willie. It's like, oh, yeah, I know Willie. And I used to say he was the most obnoxious guy I knew, but he was the most charming way to be that guy.
Yeah, I relate him to a politician. One minute you wanted to hit him, the next minute you wanted to hug him. Yeah.
I remember when I bought my boat, it was early 1991. We're sitting in Mexicali Rose in a bar downtown, and he's wringing out on this cocktail napkin while he's drinking Chili Willie's, which was his drink. He came to the paint. So what kind of paint? You need 2 tones of paint. And I said, I don't want any paint. I can't afford any paint. And he says, well, then you're not getting a boat. And he holds the napkin up, and he takes a cigarette lighter, and he torches the thing, and it goes boom. It's a big fire, and he drops it on the bar. I'm looking around, and nobody at the bar pays any attention to it.
Right.
It's like he's done this thing 20 times. And I'm like, okay, I'll get paint. So he writes it out again, and the next day you called me, and it's like, oh yeah, I gotta work out some of these details. I couldn't quite read them on the napkin. I'm like, hey Jim, I'm really sorry, this is the way it happens. It's like, this happens all the time.
I remember one time he came home from Alaska with a 20-foot drift boat drawn up on a cocktail napkin, and he says, here, build it. Very unique individual, very talented.
Yeah.
Best thing ever happened to him is when he's lost his hand. That was the most unique trademark of him, and being able to row with one hand and do the things he did, made that special oar. Very, very talented.
You don't make them like that guy anymore, do you?
No, without a doubt. Maybe that's not a bad thing.